Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Bro. It's time to review Sound of Metal. This movie was originally going to be directed by Darius in France, and I would have liked to see that. I really would have been down to see that. However, I watched the film, which is actually directed by Darius Martyr, who co-wrote it with Derek. I was actually like, yeah, I don't need Darius in France to direct this. Like, I really liked what this director had to offer. I think the directing of the actors was like really intimate. I liked the editing style. I liked the cinematography style. Like, I just thought it was really well done.
I thought maybe, if anything, the cinematography could have been like a little more interesting at times.
I actually quite liked the cinematography.
No, I liked it.
The handheld style was like very expressive. Like, whoever was operating the camera felt like they were kind of like in the scene. This film stars Riz Ahmed and Olivia Cooke. Although mostly Riz Ahmed. Although Olivia Cooke is being campaigned in lead. Excuse me. Excuse me. It makes no sense.
That's not. She is not there the entire second act.
Yeah.
Meaning, like, for half of the movie and then some, she's not there.
This film is about a heavy metal drummer who goes deaf. Their hearing is thought to be basically irrecoverable outside of a very expensive treatment. So the character goes to this sort of like therapy group.
Like a retreat. It's funded by I think a church is the idea. It's not necessarily religious at all, but it's like a place for people who are deaf who just want a community to like kind of reinvent themselves. Like you can see in the trailer, they want to live without the desire to hear. They are recalibrating their lives so they live as deaf people instead of trying to live like in some other way or like wanting to get their hearing back. And his problem is that he lives there, but ultimately he's really driven to get back to his normal life. And he's kind of doing this like in a way to please his girlfriend. In another way, it's because he knows he needs the help. This desire to like get back to reality, does it leave him? Does it linger there?
His entire life in many ways is operated around his hearing. Like he's a drummer. We see a conversation of him and his girlfriend, and we watch it from outside their RV, and we can only hear their conversations, and it just makes you think about like how that sense is a massive part of like nearly everything one does during the day, and the relationships that you have, like everything's basically dependent on that. So it's basically asks the audience like what happens when you lose something like kind of randomly, like kind of just like this thing that just drops out of the sky for the main character, and they have to reroute their entire life.
Or it's kind of about what do you have when you lose that thing that you identify with. Like it basically takes away everything that he identifies with, and it becomes really like a meditation on that. And it's kind of a spiritual movie in the sense that it's about like finding what's kind of at the core of like all of this.
Or like who you are after like all these other things go away.
Yeah.
There have been similar movies like The Rider or The Wrestler that are about people who like have a thing that they do and they can't do it anymore. But I think this movie is less specific. Like it's not about that he can't drum and that's it. He loses like more than just the drumming.
I also think the movie's just very realistic. I felt like they could have gone in a direction that's about somebody who gets spiritually reformed, or like he goes into a little like deaf village and he comes out and he's like a born again Christian. Obviously that's a very extreme version, but this movie was real and it didn't pretend like all of these wants that he had for himself before are just gone now. That'd be the easiest way, I think, to write a movie on this, is to say, if you just let go of everything, like you can find yourself. But that's not what the movie is, and that's what makes it really great. And there's some scenes in here, especially towards the end, where there's like a really heavy conversation and there's a lot of subtext in it. I had to like revisit that scene in my mind like a couple times to really like get what's going on. There are some moments that are like really fucking deep and they barely even say anything. I don't want to say even what the scenes are. There's a few in the end that are like really fucking good, where the acting is like superb. Big props to the writing for being realistic and true to the characters. And the performances. Riz Ahmed is like really good in this movie. And if he got nominated, I'd be like, yeah, he was great. I don't know if he will get nominated. I'm not necessarily going to predict that right now. It's kind of a crowded category, but
yeah, that'd be a little out there for them.
But most people would enjoy it. But I think it's a little bit slow for some people.
Yeah, I kind of agree that
it's a little slow. It's a little subtle.
In addition to it being slow, I think that maybe there are parts in the middle where it doesn't move along as quickly as other parts. The first third might have been the strongest for me, although the last third maybe lingers the most. The first third was like really disturbing to like be in the shoes of somebody who's losing their hearing. The sound design amplifies this.
There's a really great performance from Paul Raci as the head of this program, this deaf program. Superb. And where is the Oscar buzz? Like literally, where is it?
Yeah.
I would love him to get nominated for this movie, and I just don't see it anywhere. I don't see anybody talking about it.
I agree. He's actually
that one scene at the end is just. If he had a name, I think he'd be in winning conversation. I don't see how he wouldn't. Yeah,
I don't know if he would have enough screen time to win.
If this was Sam Elliott, for example, people would be like, that's time. Yeah, it's kind of interesting that this movie sort of seemed to come out of nowhere. It like played at festivals a full year ago, and I think it's like up there with some of the best movies this year.
I would say I have a couple of smaller issues with the movie. One being that it slows down a little bit towards the middle. And the other was that I felt like the last third at some point to me became almost predictable as to how it would play out, even though like the way that it did play out was still like really effective. So I wouldn't criticize it too much for that. And also the way I feel about this movie 2 weeks after seeing it, I've been thinking about it, folks. I've been thinking about it. I actually think it's a movie that does stay with me. It's a must see, I would say. And Riz Ahmed is amazing in it. I mean, if this isn't something that gets him nominated, it'll at least put him on the path to future nomination, I think, because like he can fucking do it. And the sound design absolutely should get a nomination.
I think it'll get nominated.
I think it could win, but it also might be like a lone nomination. Just because there's no sound movies this year, it was like a lot of fucking like effort. Like they did some like fucking techniques, you know, they did techniques. The way that the sound that you hear from his perspective develops throughout the movie in a few different stages tells its own story, which I think is really great. And that's why it should get nominated.
I think it gets a sound nomination, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, it did exactly what it needed to do. And right when I said like, okay, it has to end here. Like, this is good. Like, it did that. It ended. And I was like, yes. It didn't exactly like blow me away. I don't know if it's like a top 10 or not, but I would highly recommend it.
I would give Sound of Metal a 9 out of 10.
I would give it like a light 9 out of 10.
My 9 is also light, but I didn't need to specify. Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
What sound do you make?